Welcome tonight. We delve into the eerie story of Zack Thompson, a hardworking Walmart employee who encounters something terrifying on his first night closing the store alone. As the night unfolds, Zack finds himself face to face with a sinister presence that will leave you on the edge of your seat. But before we get into the story, I'd like to ask for your support. If you enjoy our content and want to see more spine-tingling tales, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us create more stories and keeps our community growing. Now, sit back, relax, and prepare to be haunted by the night shift. Zack Thompson has been working at Walmart for the past 5 years. He had started as a part-time associate, restocking shelves and cleaning up spills. But over time, his hard work and dedication had paid off. He was recently promoted to shift supervisor, a position that came with more responsibilities, a pay raise, and a lot more stress. Tonight was his first night closing the store on his own, and he was determined to prove that he was up to the task. The clock struck 10 p.m. and Zack began the closing procedures. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead as he walked through the empty aisles, checking for any stray customers and making sure everything was in order. The eerie silence of the store was a stark contrast to the bustling noise he was used to during the day. Zack felt a chill run down his spine, but he shrugged it off, attributing it to first-night jitters. He was in the electronics section turning at the display TVs when he heard the sound of footsteps echoing through the store. His heart skipped a beat. He knew he was supposed to be alone. Zack grabbed his flashlight and headed toward the sound, calling out,
"Hello? The store is closed. If you need assistance, please come to the front."
There was no response, just the sound of footsteps growing fainter. Zack quickened his pace, his mind racing with possibilities. Maybe it was a co-worker who had forgotten something, or perhaps a homeless person seeking shelter for the night. He rounded the corner to the toy section and saw a shadow darting behind a shelf.
"Hey! You can't be in here!"
Zack shouted, his voice echoing through the empty aisles. He moved towards the shelf, his flashlight beam slicing through the darkness. When he reached the spot where he had seen the shadow, there was no one there, just rows of neatly stacked toys and an unsettling silence. Zack's unease grew. He decided to lock the front doors and call for backup. As he walked towards the entrance, he heard a faint whisper, almost like a child's giggle. He froze, his blood running cold. He scanned the area with his flashlight, but saw nothing. Trying to stay calm, he quickened his pace, reaching the front doors and locking them securely. Just as he turned away from the doors, he saw a man standing at the customer service desk. The man was tall and gaunt, with hollow cheeks and piercing blue eyes that seemed to bore into Zack's soul. He was wearing a tattered trench coat, and his hands were resting on the counter.
"Excuse me, sir,"
Zack said, trying to keep his voice steady.
"The store is closed. How did you get in here?"
The man smiled, a slow, unsettling grin that sent a shiver down Zack's spine.
"I'm looking for something,"
he said with a raspy whisper.
"Something very important."
Zack took a step back, his hand instinctively moving to his phone.
"I'm sorry, but you need to leave. The store is closed and you can't be here."
The man ignored Zack's words, his gaze unwavering.
"You don't understand. I need to find it. It's here, somewhere."
Zack's patience was wearing thin.
"Sir, I'm going to have to call the police if you don't leave right now."
The man's smile widened, revealing yellowed teeth.
"Go ahead, call them, but they won't help you. No one can help you now."
Zack felt a wave of fear wash over him. He turned and bolted towards the employee lounge, his heart pounding in his chest. He could hear the man's footsteps behind him, slow and deliberate, as if he were toying with Zack. He burst into the lounge and slammed the door shut, locking it behind him. He fumbled with his phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers.
911, what's your emergency?
The operator's voice crackled through the phone.
"There's a man in the store."
Zack gasped, his voice shaking.
"He won't leave. I think he's dangerous."
Stay on the line, sir. Officers are on their way.
The operator replied. Zack clung to the phone like a lifeline, listening to the faint sounds of the operator's voice. The footsteps outside the door had stopped. He strained to hear anything, but there was only silence. After what felt like an eternity, he heard the distant wail of sirens approaching. Relief washed over him as he unlocked the door and peeked out. The store was eerily quiet. the only sound being the distant sirens growing louder. He cautiously made his way back to the front of the store where he saw the flashing lights of police cars through the glass doors. He hurried to unlock the doors, letting the officers in.
There's a man inside,
Zack said, his voice still trembling.
He was at the customer service desk, but he might have moved.
The officers spread out, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they searched the store. Zack stayed near the entrance, his eyes darting around nervously. After a few minutes, one of the officers returned, shaking his head.
"We didn't find anyone,"
he said.
"Are you sure you saw someone?"
Zack nodded vigorously.
Yes, I'm sure. He was right there. He said he was looking for something.
The officer exchanged a glance with his partner.
"We'll do a thorough sweep of the store. You stay here."
Zack watched as the officers continued their search, but his mind was racing.
How could the man have disappeared so quickly? And what did he mean by saying no one could help him?
The officers completed their sweep and returned to the entrance.
"There's no one here."
One of them said.
"If he was here, he's gone now. We'll keep an eye on the area, but you should be safe to close up."
Zack thanked the officers and watched them leave, feeling a mix of relief and lingering fear. He finished his closing duties as quickly as possible, eager to get out of the store. As he locked the doors and headed to his car, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The next night, Zack was back at work, determined not to let the previous night's events get to him. He focused on his tasks, trying to ignore the gnawing sense of unease that had settled in his stomach. He was halfway through his shift when he heard the sound of footsteps again. His heart pounded as he grabbed his flashlight and headed towards the sound. This time he was prepared. He moved quickly, determined to catch whoever was in the store. He rounded the corner to the toy section and saw the same shadow darting behind a shelf.
Hey, I told you, you can't be in here.
Zack shouted, his voice echoing through the aisles. He moved towards the shelf, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. When he reached the spot, he was met with the same empty rows of toys. Frustration and fear bubbled up inside him. He turned to leave but stopped in his tracks when he saw the man standing at the end of the aisle. The same gaunt figure. The same piercing blue eyes.
What do you want?
Zack demanded, his voice shaking. The man smiled with that same unsettling grin.
I'm looking for something. Something very important.
There's nothing here for you.
Zack said, his voice rising.
You need to leave now.
The man took a step forward, his eyes boring into Zack's.
You don't understand. It's here, and I won't leave until I find it.
Zack's fear turned to anger.
I don't care what you're looking for. You need to get out of here.
The man's smile widened.
Oh, but you will care. Soon enough.
Before Zack could react, the man lunged at him, his hands reaching out. Zack stumbled back, his flashlight clattering to the floor. He scrambled to his feet and ran, his heart pounding in his chest. He could hear the man's footsteps behind him, growing closer with each step. Zack burst into the employee lounge and slammed the door shut, locking it behind him. He grabbed his phone and dialed 911 again, his hands shaking.
911, what's your emergency?
The operator's voice crackled through the phone.
He's back.
Zack gasped.
The man from last night. He's in the store. He's chasing me.
Stay on the line, sir. Officers are on their way.
The operator replied. Zack clung to the phone, listening to the sound of his own ragged breathing. The footsteps outside the door had stopped. He strained to hear anything, but there was only silence. After what felt like an eternity, he heard the distant wail of sirens approaching. Relief washed over him as he unlocked the door and peeked out. The store was eerily quiet, the only sound being the distant sirens growing louder. He cautiously made his way back to the front of the store, where he saw the flashing lights of police cars through the glass doors. He hurried to unlock the doors, letting the officers in.
He's in here.
Zack said, his voice still trembling.
He was chasing me. He said he was looking for something.
The officers spread out, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they searched the store. Zack stayed near the entrance, his eyes darting around nervously. After a few minutes, one of the officers returned, shaking his head.
"We didn't find anyone. Are you sure you saw someone?"
Zack nodded vigorously.
Yes, I'm sure. He was right there. He said he was looking for something.
The officer exchanged a glance with his partner.
"We'll do a thorough sweep of the store. You stay here."
Zack watched as the officers continued their search, but his mind was racing. How could the man have disappeared so quickly? What did he mean by saying no one could help him? As he waited, his anxiety grew, the silence of the store pressing in on him. The officers completed their sweep and returned to the entrance.
There's no one here.
One of them said.
If he was here, he's gone now. We'll keep an eye on the area, but you should be safe to close up.
Zack thanked the officers and watched them leave. As he locked the doors and headed to his car, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The next few nights were eerily quiet. Zack kept his guard up, constantly looking over his shoulder and double-checking every corner of the store. The mysterious man didn't show up again, and Zack began to think that maybe it had all been a figment of his imagination, a byproduct of the stress from his promotion. On the 5th night, Zack was closing the store when he noticed something strange. In the electronics section, one of the display TVs was on, playing static. He was certain he had turned it off earlier. He approached it cautiously, his flashlight in hand. As he reached out to turn to the TV, the static suddenly changed, displaying an old, grainy video of a young boy playing with a toy car. The boy looked up at the camera and smiled, his eyes wide and innocent. Zack felt a chill run down his spine. The boy's face seemed familiar, but he couldn't place where he had seen him before. The video cut off abruptly, and the screen went back to static. Zack turned off the TV and stepped back, his heart pounding. He decided to finish his closing duties quickly and get out of there. As he was about to leave the electronics section, he heard a faint whisper.
Help me.
Zack spun around, his flashlight beam sweeping through the dark aisles. There was no one there. He felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. The voice sounded like the boy from the video. Determined to figure out what was going on, Zack went to the security office and pulled up the store's surveillance footage. He fast-forwarded through the past few hours, looking for any sign of the mysterious man or the boy. There was nothing unusual until he reached the point where he had heard the whisper. On the screen, Zack saw himself in the electronics section, but there was something wrong. Behind him, barely visible in the shadows, was the silhouette of the man in the trench coat. Zack's blood ran cold. The man had been standing right behind him, and he hadn't even noticed. Zack rewound the footage, trying to get a better look at the man, but the image was too dark and grainy. Frustrated and terrified, he decided to call the police again. He grabbed his phone and dialed 911.
911, what's your emergency?
The operator's voice was a lifeline of sanity in the madness.
He's back.
Zack said, his voice trembling.
The man from the other night. I saw him on the security footage. He was right behind me.
Stay calm, sir. Officers are on their way.
Zack stayed in the security office, watching the monitors with a mixture of fear and anticipation. He kept an eye on the live feed, but there was no sign of the man. After what felt like an eternity, he saw the police cars pull up outside the store. He hurried to let the officers in, his heart racing. He was here, Zack said, showing them the footage.
He was right behind me.
The officers examined the footage and exchanged concerned looks.
We'll do another sweep of the store.
One of them said.
Stay here and keep an eye on the monitors.
Zack nodded, feeling a small measure of relief with the officers around. He watched the monitors intently as the officers moved through the store, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. As they searched, Zack noticed something strange on one of the screens. In the toy section, a single toy car was moving on its own, rolling slowly across the floor. His heart pounded as he watched it. There was no logical explanation for it, and it filled him with a deep sense of dread.
Officer!
Zack called out, pointing at the screen.
Look at this.
One of the officers came over and watched the screen with Zack.
That's strange.
The officer muttered.
Stay here. We'll check it out.
The officers moved towards the toy section, and Zack watched them on the monitors. As they approached the spot where the toy car had been, the screen flickered and went dark. All of the cameras had cut out simultaneously. Zack's panic surged. He frantically tried to bring the cameras back online, but nothing worked. The store was plunged into complete darkness. He grabbed his flashlight and phone, ready to call for backup again, when he heard the whispering voice.
Help me!
Zack turned around, his flashlight beam revealing the young boy from the video standing in the doorway of the security office. The boy's eyes were wide with fear. His face was pale.
Please help me.
The boy said, his voice trembling. Zack's heart ached with sympathy and terror.
Who are you? What do you need?
Before the boy could answer, the figure of the man in the trench coat appeared behind him. The boy screamed, and the man reached out, his hand passing through the boy's body like a shadow. Zack's mind reeled as he realized the boy was a ghost.
Leave him alone!
Zack shouted, stepping forward. The man looked up, his eyes staring into Zack's.
You can't save him. He's mine.
Zack felt a surge of determination.
I don't care who you are. I'm not letting you hurt him.
The man lunged at Zack, his form shifting and flickering like a bad TV signal. Zack swung his flashlight, but it passed through the man as if he were made of smoke. The room grew colder, and Zack felt an icy grip around his throat, squeezing the air out of him. With a desperate effort, Zack broke free and stumbled back, gasping for breath. The boy's ghost was watching, his eyes filled with terror and pleading.
Please,
The boy whispered.
don't let him take me.
Zack's mind raced. He remembered something he had read about spirits and unfinished business.
What do you want?
He asked the man, his voice trembling but defiant. The man paused, his form flickering.
I'm looking for something. Something that was taken from me.
Zack felt a surge of hope.
What was taken from you? Maybe I can help.
The man's eyes narrowed.
My son. He was taken from me. I need to find him.
Zack's heart sank as he realized the truth. The ghost boy was the man's son, and the man was trapped, searching for him in the afterlife.
He's here.
Zack said, his voice softening.
He's right here with me.
The man's form wavered, and for a moment, Zack saw a flicker of humanity in his eyes.
My son.
The boy stepped forward, his ghostly form shimmering in the dim light.
Daddy?
The man reached out, his hand trembling.
I've been looking for you.
Tears welled up in the boy's eyes.
I was scared, Daddy. I didn't know where you were.
I'm here now. We can be together again.
Zack watched, his fear giving way to a deep sense of sadness and hope. The boy and his father embraced, their forms merging into a soft, glowing light. The room grew warmer, and Zack felt a sense of peace wash over him. As the light faded, the man and the boy disappeared, leaving Zack alone in the security office. The cameras flickered back to life, showing the store in its normal, empty state. The officers returned, their faces filled with confusion.
We didn't find anything.
One of them said.
The store is clear.
Zack nodded, a small smile on his face.
It's over. They're gone.
The officers looked at him, puzzled, but didn't press for details. Zack finished his closing duties and left the store, feeling a sense of closure and relief. As he drove home, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The store no longer felt like a place of fear and darkness. Instead, it felt like a place where a father and son had finally found peace. And Zack knew that no matter what happened, he had made a difference. He had helped a lost soul find his way home. And in doing so, he had found a sense of purpose and strength he never knew he had. From that night on, Zack faced his duties with newfound confidence, knowing that he had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. The night shift at Walmart would never be the same, but neither would Zack. He had stared into the abyss and come out the other side, stronger and more determined than ever. Thank you for joining us on this harrowing journey with Zack Thompson and his nightmarish encounter at Walmart. We hope you enjoyed the night shift, and that it sent shivers down your spine. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more like it, please remember to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you can catch all of the episodes. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue bringing you more frightening tales. And if you have any story suggestions or feedback, feel free to leave a comment below. We love hearing from our viewers. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and keep the lights on. Good night.